Yo, what's good guys? Confess CS back again with another video. And alright, in today's video I want to talk about the new CS Knife Trade-Up system, but not in the way we've been talking about it recently. I want to take a look at possible future scenarios which I think could happen. And yeah, as most of you know by now, you can currently trade up to knives by putting in 5 Covert skins. That basically turned the whole market into a huge knife casino. And we've already seen the effects. Knife prices crashed, Covert's price exploded, and most knife trade-ups have kind of reached this weird 100% profitability plateau. And now I want to break down why that happened and then go through 3 scenarios that I think could happen next. Some are bullish, some are bearish, all of them are speculative, but reasonably so. And all of this is not financial advice. I'm going to say that right here. So first of all, why are so many trade-ups sitting at around 100% profitability? At the start, it was basically a gold rush. People, including me, did trade-ups simply because they were plus EV. You could pretty easily justify doing them because knives were still high, and they are kind of high with some knives still. Covert skins were cheaper, and everyone and their grandma wanted to gamble, but in a smarter way. So over time, though, the market adjusted. We've seen that right now, and we're going to continue seeing this. This is a market. In my opinion, like everything is somewhat connected to each other. Covert prices went up, knife prices went down, and the expected value of most trade-ups got pushed towards break-even. That is already happening. So now we're in this weird situation where almost everything is hovering around 100% return on investment. Not really profitable, but not totally horrible either. Just flat. At the same time, knife prices themselves have been dragged down by this more supply coming from trade-ups and this less special feeling because knives are constantly being churned out. That's the setup. Now, let's move into the practical side with a tier list and then talk about what I think will happen in the future. Because people have asked me in the comments to talk about these trade-ups, but in reality, it's kind of not really like too much of a talking point anymore. You will see why. Okay, let's go through it. So yeah, as this video is kind of long, I will put timestamps if you don't want to see the tier list. I completely get it. It was asked for, and so I'm doing it. But if you don't want to see it, like my theories are, you can see it on the bottom of the video. I will put timestamps, as I said. So in case you didn't know yet, I'm still giving away a 5-star monkey business. It's going for around 10 to 12 euros right now, and the winner will be drawn on the 15th of November, this week's giveaway. You can comment, like, subscribe under this video or the last one, and I will draw the winner accordingly. Okay, now let's look at it. So this is my tier list. I have a very interesting process, which I'm going to give you insight about now. So I've basically looked at every price, and I've noticed that not really among all of the collections you have any price differences anymore. So back when like 2 weeks or 1 week ago, it was like the Chroma 2 collection had like kind of lower prices than the Chroma 3 collection, and so on and so forth. Same with Gamma and Gamma 2. But this is not the case anymore. So we can basically put only collections here, as you can see. I use them here, and we will look at the trade-ups I've gathered here. So yeah, so let's look at the first one. This is the Gamma collection. So if we look at it, it has a 102% profitability. The best item is worth 12,800 euros, but the odds to profit are basically 1 in 4. So 75% of cases, you are most of the time losing money. The thing is, with all of these Doppler collections where you have Doppler knives, every single Doppler phase is listed in a single way. But that is kind of irritating, I think, and misleading, because like hitting a Doppler is not like if you hit a Doppler, it's only like the Doppler, not the phase itself. That's like a denomination among the Doppler skin. So basically, what I'm trying to say here. All of these knives you're seeing are not really unique knives. For example, the Caramid Gamma Doppler, Caramid Gamma Doppler phase 1, phase 2, of course they have different prices. This is why they have to list it like this, so you get a better average. But like if we look at the Dopplers, those are basically all the Gamma Dopplers. And then we only have two knives, Autotronic, Lore, and after that, that's basically all a negative EV. You're losing money on all of those. So this is how the 25% odds to profit is calculated. And this one has, like, if we're looking at it in a very interesting way, you're going to see my tier list. We have the worst item, $65, so basically leaving you with nothing. The trade up itself costs $475, so have fun. But as I said, it doesn't really make any sense anymore. So yeah, of course, you have the 13k Gamma Doppler Emerald, which would make you very rich in one click. But other than that, it's a pretty bad trade up at all. Not really worth it anymore. So we're going to put it into the Gamba tier because right now it still has over 100% return on investment, at least with the data that is given here. And the highest cost is 12k, so you can get very fucking rich. But as I said, most of the times you're probably not really hitting like an emerald here, right? Otherwise, everybody would do it. So this is my explanation around it. Now, with this one, it's kind of interesting. So this is basically the AK headshot. I had to put manual prices here because they are kind of more expensive and kind of less expensive. It depends on the float. So I've looked at it, and you can, like, if you snipe them, you can still get them like in a 0.12, 0.11 float, which will give you minimal wear gloves. And those are very expensive. So with this one, you have 37.5% odds to profit, and the best item is 2.5k, so way less than on the last one. And the worst item is still even less than on the last one, I think, right? Yeah. So $55 would leave you as well with nothing, but this one costs only $300, and it still has kind of a high profitability because people are probably not like the DJ gamblers, I'm going to say, probably haven't figured out yet how the floats and everything work, I think. So yeah, if you do exactly this one, or if I did it now, I would rank it at probably solid. It's a solid trade up still. This is the only one I would do out of those still. Like if I look at profitability here. So next one is the Spectrum collection, which can give you a butterfly knife, Doppler, ruby, sapphire, and everything. So it's pretty gamba as well. 15k for the best item, 55 for the worst item. You have 23% odds to profit, which is very low. Basically, only the butterflies are profit, everything else is negative. So not really a good trade up at this point, but it's still kind of profitable. It's kind of, as I said, right? But those are like, I found some on CS Float for $75 if you can get your hands on them. Yeah, that's not really a bad trade up, in my opinion, but it's also not as good as this one when it comes to profitability. So I'm going to put it into not good, not bad. Oh, well, maybe something in between, but for now I will put it into solid because we will see why with the next ones. So here, this is the one we had. I'm going to close those. So the Danger Zone collection. This is basically the Talon Fade, and you could technically hit a Stiletto Knife and the Talon Knife and everything else in Blue Gem, which makes it kind of gamba. But if you look at it, it is 93% profitability. So honestly, why would you do it? Only if the if your goal is to hit a Blue Gem, which is very, very rare. So I would not really do this trade up, in my opinion. So I'm going to put this one. This is the first one that I'm going to put into garbage. Yeah, as I said, I'm not really that risk. I don't have this affinity to risk, in my opinions, to only speculate for Talon Knife, Case Hardened, and Blue Gem, which would make you rich, basically. There are better trade ups for that. So now we have the one I did on my last video. This is still somewhat a profitable trade up. So 113% profitability with fees. But without fees, it's 130%. And those are the skin snipe prices, like the market prices, not the Steam market this time. around. This one is, as I said, still like those knives will always be, in my opinion, the most popular knives in the game. This is my opinion, of course, apart from the butterfly knife. Um, they are just M9 bayonet, normal bayonet, karambit doubler. They have always been very popular and always been like there's such a high demand for them. It has always been like this. So this is still a somewhat good trade up, and as you can see, the best item is 13k. But of course, the worst item is 58. So this is also one I would put into Gambit here. Like if you want to gamble, this is kind of a thing you can do. But as I said, $520 is kind of a lot, you know? So yeah, I wouldn't do it at this point anymore. Except for a video, I don't know. But like at this point, it's not really a good thing to do. But you know, if someone wants to have a knife, you can. Like the profit, the odds profit is 28% here. So that's okay-ish. Now for the next one, we have the 5.7 Hyper Beast, which is also like the Revolution case I showed you. It has, like I put the float at 0.12, which would give you minimal wear gloves. So in this case, the absolute god gloves, which you could hit. But if you look at this one, $2,600 cost, and the only four, five, six gloves you can get are profit, and everything else is basically in negative. And if you completely fuck up, you are left with $270. Um, this is something like this is the one I thought about when I did this tier. What the fuck are you even doing? I would never do this trade up. And I'm honestly, like, call me a conspiracy theorist. I think that these skins have already been pumped by Chinese people because they are probably scared that their gloves are not going to be worth it as much. And those gloves, as I've shown you on one of my last videos, it was the CS2 market cap and the case video, which I did, where I talked about the supply increase, basically. These gloves didn't have a real supply increase. They had like 1.5 to 2%. So that's not really relevant, and people are not doing this trade up. As I said, it's $2,600 already, and those are like these skins have risen, um, like one of the fastest skins that have risen in this update. So yeah, this is something I would absolutely stay away from. Now for the OG collection, you could put many skins here. The Alchemelian is going for around, yeah, you could probably get it for 60 something. So the profitability could be a little bit higher here, and you also have the chance to get an M9 bayonet blue gem. So you can just get a blue gem here. Karambit blue gem, that would be quite a sick hit. We all would love that, honestly. But like as I said, in terms of would I do it? Probably not. The best item, of course, being a blue gem, but everything else, it doesn't really have like too much. Like you have the Karambit Fate, yeah, it gives you quite a lot of money, but the Karambit afterward, like the second most expensive item, is 1.2k, and this trade up costs $300 depending on when you buy and where you buy, and if you can snipe some good offers, this is something I would not do. And but it's not good, not bad. I understand why you would do it. This is a revolver case collection logo, so don't wonder here. I could have taken anything, Phoenix or anything like one of the OG knives. It's kind of interesting because you can hit the blue gem as I said. So I would put it into not good, not too insanely bad, because as I said, without fees you kind of have like still 105% profitability, and the odds to profit is higher than the last ones. So now, for one, I don't understand how this one is still being done so much. The Legion of Anubis is still being traded so insanely much. I've never seen this, and they're still pretty cheap. You can get them on float for 28, 29, and field tested, and that could leave you with a skeleton knife blue gem. Of course, like FN and everything is a little bit more expensive, and also the knives would be more expensive, but the profitability kind of stays the same. I wouldn't do it, but if you do, well, good luck hitting that blue gem, honestly. I wish you the best of luck. So this is, for me, already garbage tier. because like the best item 706 euros dollars here, $706 doesn't really make sense to me why someone would do it. As I said, only for the gambling aspect of it, of hitting a blue gem, I would kind of get it. Like for a content idea for some rich YouTuber or something, some content creator that would otherwise open cases, might still do this trade up, I think. So the next one is an interesting one because I don't really know what to do with this one. So you have a very, very small chance to profit. Basically, the talon knives and some Ursus and stiletto knives would give you profit. And everything else is basically complete shit. There's a Navaja knife in it. You also have the stiletto knives here, which can also be very cheap. But in terms of would I do it or not? Absolutely not. So this one is something I would put into the middle tier because, as I said, I don't really know why you would do it. Like it's already not profitable. Of course, you can adjust the floats and everything, and that would probably give you somewhat kind of different outcomes here with profitability and everything, but not too much, as I said. But this one, yeah, if you want to tell a knife Ruby or something, okay, go for it, I guess. But I personally would stay away from it, and I don't recommend you doing it at this point. But of course, in terms of is it worth it, contrary to cases, yeah, it could still be worth it, contrary to cases, because the Prisma case has, I think, like 60 to 65% ROI. But we're going to talk about this in depth in the next part. So let's get through these trade ups. This one is the Snakebite collection, and it's the same logic I applied to the other glove tiers, which like it makes the most sense to me right now. Like probably people are completely not aware what you can and cannot put into a contract still to get like minimal wear gloves, which are way more expensive than field tested gloves. Depends on if that stays the same. But this one is one that is still very insanely profitable. I wouldn't have ever thought of that. I don't know if you can get them still for 55. I checked and they were there for 55. So if you're probably sniping them, I don't know if they're still there. If you're sniping them, okay, if you get a good price, this one is something I would still like personally do. But as I said, it's not really Gambit here. You can have 1.6k here. That would be your biggest hit, basically. So, no. So it's not really enough for Gambit here, but it's solid. Now, the most interesting one. I did a video on this one as well. Not really on the trade up. I thematized the cases. But the trade up itself is also kind of. We all know that it's Gambit here. Um, you have very bad profitability of 85% with field tested starlight protectors. They're for $69. I've even adjusted this price, so this is very accurate. It should be accurate from CS Float. Um, so 0.27 chance to basically be rich with one click, but everything else, of course, the butterfly knife is always a good hit. And in this case, the Huntsman Emerald is also quite solid still. And of course, the lore. But like, I don't understand why you would do it. Basically, the only thing you're hoping for is a butterfly knife. Everything else is kind of not interesting. You have 20% chance to hit a butterfly knife here, hence the odds to profit probably. It's always the butterfly knives basically, but everything else would leave you with nothing. So shadow daggers, huntsman knives, the low tier ones, Bowie knife. Like who wants those? I don't know. Like in the generally speaking, like they're not really traded much. So yeah, this is basically, in my opinion, what the fuck are you even doing? Or Gambitier. So it's very hard to say. Of course, it's Gambitier because you can hit a butterfly knife emerald. But for now, if it's my opinion here, what the fuck are you even doing? Now, one interesting thing, I could have also taken the Falchion collection in here, but it's also for the Falchion collection and for the Shadow Daggers collection. It doesn't really make sense to me why you would do these, except for if you wanted to buy that knife anyway. So you could like you put in 135 euros, $135 in this case, and you get the knife you wanted anyway, and you can kind of hit like if you adjust the floats and everything, kind of hit a cool knife here. Like, for example, the classic knife Crimson Web, the classic knife Fade, or even, in this case as well, a blue gem. So instead, like personally, as I'm a degen gambler, you've already noticed, personally, I would do it if I wanted a classic knife. I wouldn't buy a classic knife here. I would just do this trade up stuff. Nobody is doing it. So these have not risen too much. So this is one I would put in not good, not bad tier. So this is the final tier list. I'm very interested in knowing what you think about it. And yeah, let's get into my theory. So here we go. Option one, knives go back up. This is the reasonable gambler scenario. In my opinion, the most likely outcome is that knife prices go back up over time. Why? Because once trade ups are no longer clearly profitable, a big chunk of people, what I'd call the reasonable gamblers, will simply stop doing them. The gold rush is over, the easy money is gone, the risk isn't worth it anymore when you're basically just break even or worse. That means less new knife supply coming into the market, but the demand for knives as a flex status gameplay item or like a trader's item probably stays similar. Um, so if supply stops rising insanely fast while demand remains stable, basic economics say prices should slowly recover, especially for knives that are already popular or have strong aesthetics and are just basically popular at this point and have always been popular. So in this scenario, trade ups cool down, knives and gloves stabilize again, and they will climb. This is basically what I think the market is right now. Once that happens, it's also kind of the interesting part about it. That would also mean that the covert skins should kind of still rise. Because if knives go back up and everything starts being profitable again because knives are going up, then covert prices should basically rise with them. It's going to be kind of linear here because the market is slowly moving away from the everyone is printing knives meta. Option 2, coverts keep climbing and match case ROI. The second scenario is that covert skins become more expensive and that they start to roughly match the kind of return you get from opening cases. As I said, I don't really think this is going to happen, but right now cases usually sit at something like 65% ROI on average over the long term. So imagine trade ups adjusting to a similar level. You pay a lot more for your covert inputs, you still lose money on average, and the expected value sits more in line with case openings. But then we get to an important question. If knife trade ups are worse or similar to cases in terms of ROI, why would I dump a ton of money into one big roll instead of opening multiple cases which feel more fun, last longer, and only cost €2.19 per spin if you have the case? If not, then you cannot add the case here. So this is not really likely in my opinion. People will prefer small, frequent dopamine hits, as we've seen. Like, and also for content creators, this is way more interesting because, like, imagine you do one trade up that costs you $400, or you open 200 cases which cost the same. You have way more content. Yeah, so basically, not putting your money in over one big stressful all in is probably going to be like the common sense here. So in this scenario, covert skins become more and more expensive, trade-ups lose a lot of their appeal, and cases become the default way to gamble again. Knives don't necessarily pump here. As I said, I'm pretty sure they're going to recover at one point. But as there are higher input costs, lower or similar ROIs, and more people shifting back to cases, why wouldn't knives also rise in this case? You know what I'm saying? Um, yeah. Also, one thing I'd like to add in this scenario. So the case investment market has always been quite a big thing. Like, I think since 2016, 2017, people are constantly talking about it, and there's probably like for the rare discontinued cases, um, already like a small group of people hoarding all of these cases. Like in terms of player count in general, like they're like the percentile is probably not large. So with this entire covert trade-up system they've introduced, that didn't really exist with this one. Of course, one thing that might add to this theory is that people are just investing into the covert skins, thinking they can control the supply here and basically make a profit. But as I said, everything indicates that it shouldn't go here. Now, for the last scenario, strap yourself in. This is a very interesting one. This third scenario is panic. So, people start to realize the plateau is real. Profits aren't coming back, and the covert investments were basically just bags. Because a lot of people invested into covert skins. If they see that it doesn't really move anymore, they might as well just liquidate them. Um, so, yeah. You could then get a chain reaction, of course. Investors start dumping their covert skins onto the market. Others see the price falling and also start selling, and the whole thing turns into slow motion or fast crash on certain skins. But there's the catch, this isn't a pure doomsday scenario, because as soon as prices drop too far, other players will jump in. We've seen that with the knives, so this is kind of an unreasonable scenario, but realistically, like with the things that have happened in the past, it's not really that unlikely. But yeah, it's just psychology at this point. So if knives are stable or rising at that time and covert inputs suddenly become cheap again, people will start buying them back up for trade ups or investments. So this is probably not going to last, and if this happens, it's also going to be short term, in my opinion. So even if we see a panic phase, it just would just reset the market again and create a new wave of value buyers who step in when everyone else is scared. So my personal take is knives recover as trade-ups become less attractive and supply growth slows down. Reasonable gamblers step away, and only the hardcore degen crowd stays. Second most likely is covert prices keep climbing until the ROI looks more like case openings, at which point a lot of people just go back to case openings because it's more fun. So it's not really likely, in my opinion. Um, Least likely, though, but possible, and maybe even more likely than the second scenario, is the panic sell on covert investments that triggers a complete chain reaction, followed by new buyers scooping up the cheap supply once the fear has peaked. So, none of this obviously is financial advice. It's just how I currently see the CS2 economy reacting to a new knife trade up system. And yeah. So, if you've got your own theory about what's going to happen, maybe you think knives aren't recovering, or that this is just the beginning of something bigger, let me know in the comments. I'm very interested in knowing what you think. So, yeah, thank you for watching to this point, and see you guys.